Dial Models Workshop.
Hi, it's Yeji.
And Clint.
Hey, it's Larry. You are entering Models Workshop After Hours, a modeling podcast where we talk about miniatures, model painting, and we cuss a lot. If you can be offended, we're probably going to offend you. Then you're going to laugh, and you're going to feel bad. And then we'll offend you again, and then you'll laugh again. You see the pattern. So kick out, sit back, grab your brush, grab your paints, and get ready to have some fun. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Models Workshop After Hours. This is Jim24 coming at you from the studio, ready to do some work on some models and talk y'all's ears off. Tonight it's kind of a smaller crew. We've got Rye Bread, we've got Jim, and we have two guests in the studio today. We've got Dan from Paint All the Miniature podcast, and we have Nicholas from the Skirmish Supremacy podcast. And so we're going to actually be doing a special on podcast, and we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we dealt with coming up and what we're dealing with now and stuff that we do to learn and everything else. So everyone, let's start with Dan. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good tonight. I was just mentioning in a little bit of pre-show that I'm painting leaves for the first time tonight. I've never really painted leaves, but the new Shadespire bases have lots of leaves on it. So yeah, that's exciting times, hey?
Painting leaves. I don't know. Are they those Kentucky leaves that are nice and special?
I've got no idea what a Kentucky leaf is, mate. What's a Kentucky leaf?
The type that gets you high.
Okay. Oh no, it's not one of those. It's the regular leaf.
So it's not a Snoop Dogg.
No,
leaf. Got it.
Definitely not.
So Nicholas, what have you been up to?
Oh, not a whole lot. Actually, I've been working on bases tonight. We're all doing bases.
So apparently it is all about that bass, no treble. All right, so I'm going to ask Rie first what she's up to, because Jim, you'll take half the show explaining because you're just that fucking epic. So Rie, what are you up to tonight?
I have actually put down the minis for a little bit, and I had gotten some watercolors as a gift from a Secret Santa. So,
ooh, spiffy.
Yeah. Whoever picked my name absolutely knows me way better than I had expected. Didn't they also get you a Bob Ross chia? Yes,
awesome.
I have a Bob Ross chia head.
Nice. You got chia head, so you got Bob Ross head.
Got Bob Ross head.
Does it give you happy little thoughts?
It did until it got moldy.
So your head got moldy.
My head got moldy.
All right.
And smelly.
So, Jim, what 17 projects are you working on tonight? And folks, I'm seriously, I'm not trying to be snarky or anything, but like if you ever watch this man paint on camera, he will literally knock out like 17 things at once. So trust me, this isn't snark. This is like me going, okay, what are you going to amaze us with this time?
Well, 17 projects. That was done by about 2 o'clock this afternoon. We're already at like 9:33 my time. We've already knocked off another 12 projects since then. I mean, come on. I'm not slipping here.
Sad things. Sadly, I can seriously believe that.
It feels like 4,000, actually, all at the same time. I think in reality it probably is. I'm still trying to figure out when I can do my first test filming for battle reports on my now finished Ardennes board. That is.
So are you going to make some DVDs for that?
No, I wanted to try to do a Facebook Live because actually I saw cool. Privateer Press. They were doing, I don't know whatever their new game is, but they were doing a Facebook Live of their new game. And I said, I think you can just nowadays you can actually activate the client through your standard old webcam and your software and just activate it and go live streaming. I'm 99% sure I've actually live streamed from my computer. I normally do my phone just because I have some special brackets to mount my phone to on my desk, so it's just like real easy to hit go live and slide the phone in and just do some recording. So, but I'm pretty sure I've done it from my computer too. Oh, actually the last, I think, 7 or 8 sessions I've done from the PC, it was sometime late in the summer, around July, well, August or something like that, when they finally let you do it from your PC instead of just a phone.
Yeah, like, I legitly, with the exception of the podcast, everything else Models Workshop is done from my phone. So, like, I'm so horrible. I have this really nice podcast machine. Oh, and speaking of the Pod Smash, it's Do the Smash. to the pod smash. All right, speaking of the podcast machine, quick shout out to James S. He hooked us up. We were actually running out of hard drive space, and randomly in the mail, a hard drive showed up. So major shout out to you. You're actually keeping me from losing my mind trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with all the files. And this one, the last one lasted us for 2.5 years. This one should probably last us once I finally drive up to Chicago and sit down with James and get the codec installed on this computer. Should last us for the next 6. So we're doing pretty damn good.
Oh, we'll change that. We'll have 7-hour podcasts.
No, the problem honestly, the problem right now is it's the wave for those wave files at 2 gigabytes a pop. Those are killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me. So
yeah, but they're such high quality.
They are. They really are. And I wish seriously I could get everybody in wave format. But this is a small group, and we have 5 audio streams. Now imagine Yedgy and Clint here, and Gildy here, and possibly Charles here. That's 7 or 8 streams that we're recording, and at 2 gigs a pop, that's 16 gigabytes per podcast. And while, yeah, it probably sounds amazing, we output... And here's... Okay, this is time for everyone to take notes, because this is actually talking shop. But we only output in 64 kilobyte a second mono output through our host. Because in all honesty, whenever you're doing spoken word like this, you really cannot tell the difference between 64 and 128 kilobyte sample rate. You can't. And the file sizes are actually, I mean, it's literally half the size. And especially since you're doing mono, then it's a quarter of the size, comparative to what you normally listen to a CD, which is 1 megabyte a minute. You're getting a quarter of that. So you're going 1 megabyte per 4 minutes for our podcast. And we've tried it 128, 96. We tried 160 when we had a short month, because our big problem is we only through Libsyn, you only have 450 megabytes of upload space per month. So once you're done with that, you have unlimited download, but you only have so much upload. Like this month's going to be tight, so this episode's going to be kind of short. Just to give you all a heads up, because of the 3 or 4 hour monstrosity we recorded at the beginning of the month. Yeah, that absolutely killed our storage. So, and that's another thing, resource management. Dan, what do you use for your podcast host?
I use Shout Engine. And I must kind of put a caveat out there to start off with, is that the way that I learn things and the way that I develop is just needs must. So all that, what you just said just there, got no idea. Got no idea whatsoever. So I just kind of, I'm growing and developing and just finding my own way. So I use Shout Engine and upload that, and I've never hit any buffers. I've never hit any kind of boundaries. So yeah, I just kind of toddle along oblivious to the world.
Okay, now, real quick question, Nick. What do you use for host?
So, we use Sprecher for Skirmish Supremacy as our host. And
okay, now, is that a pay host?
So they have a free plan. I am paying for it because it gives me, for one, it gives me a whole bunch of metrics once I do. For 2, I've got 500 gig or more of storage on there. Unlimited uploads per month for shows. And actually, no, it's like 500 hours of content. It's not even, there's not even like a limit on the size. It's hours.
You see, the problem with us, okay, so this is episode 83. Our average episode is 2.5 hours long. So we are we'd be sitting at the 200-hour limit. So yeah, that sounds great. Well, actually, that'd give us 4 years of content. That would have us out to about 180 or 170. See, so ours is a paid host too. We pay $15 a month, and Libsyn is actually considered in the podcast world one of the premium services out there. We pay $15 a month, and whenever I say publish, and it publishes out, it sends it to YouTube, it sends it to iTunes, it sends it to Google Play, it sends it to iHeartRadio, it sends it to Stitcher, It sends it, and then it sends it to the basic, what am I looking for? The basic readers that are out there, the pod catchers and podcast.
Yeah, just anything that's
like
got your RSS feed.
Thank you, RSS. That's what it sends it out to all the RSS too. So there are benefits to utilizing a paid service such as Libsyn, but everyone has a budget too. You know, some people don't want to pay anything, and there's podcasts that legitly run straight off of YouTube. There's podcasts that go on YouTube and they don't go anywhere else. I don't agree that those are true podcasts, because you've got Podbean, which is a free, either a free or a very inexpensive service. You have like the one that Dan uses. It's
Shout Engine.
Dan, Shout Engine. And now is that one free?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah. What sounds really cool with your one about you just have to upload it and then send it up there, and it goes to lots of different platforms. That would be something that'd be really helpful. But yeah, you make your own way, and I'm very sort of careful of not wanting to kind of get into the realms of spending any money at the moment. I can definitely see why people would, and everyone finds their own way, but I'm like, no, that $15 is better in my pocket than someone else's.
Right, but I mean, we've been able to. We have a few Patreons, or a few patrons, a few less now. Thank you, Patreon, for fucking us all up with that little update. For anyone who hasn't heard yet, what Patreon was planning on doing, and this goes along with being a podcast because we all have patrons and people who help support us. Well, what Patreon was going to do was they were going to start charging the people who are supporting us 35 cents plus 2.5% of whatever they donated to us, then what they were donating to us. So for a person that was pledging $1, which a lot of our people were pledging $1 because we don't ask for a lot, it's like, hey, send us a tip. It helps us cover server costs, computer upgrades, whatnot, buying microphones for people who need them. And what we don't use, we send to schools, we buy dice, we buy different things. But anyways, a person who was giving $1 was suddenly going to start paying $1.40. Now, the old system was we lost 5% of our patron fees. What I can understand what they were trying to do was make it where if we had $75 in pledges, we got $75 in pledges instead of the $68.50 that we ended up getting, or whatever it was. But the problem is I lost enough patrons that I lost money, because now I'm going to end up getting even less because Patreon decided to screw the pooch. So
I lost 4 in a couple of days.
Yep, I lost 3. DM Scotty, I know he lost several. DMG Info said he didn't lose any, but he also doesn't. He says he doesn't have a lot of followers to begin with. A lot of creators that I was talking to were losing people, and a lot of people who were supporters were getting ready right before this upcoming billing cycle, just post-Christmas, were getting ready to drop most of their $1 pledges because it just didn't make any damn sense. And it doesn't make any sense. It was absolutely a foolish decision. Everybody saw what the problem was from the very get-go, and I honestly think that what Patreon was trying to do was trying to get rid of those $1 pledges, because I think it's costing them money. Because they're doing it stupid. Because, okay, whenever you swipe a credit card, it costs the company anywhere from 15 cents to 35 cents for every time you swipe a credit card. That's why most places go, you have to spend at least $10 before you can swipe a credit card. That's why. Well, what happens is there's a person there that's pledging $1, and that's all they pledge. Let's say Nick pledged $1 to Models Workshop, and that's all he pledged. He didn't pledge to any other provider. So what happens is when they charge Nick, it costs them let's say 35 cents, because that's what they were going to charge, 35 cents to swipe his credit card. So all of a sudden, his pledge, or they're only pulling in 65 cents of that $1 that he's pledged. Well, they only take 5% away from the patron. And so they were sending me 95 cents. It was literally costing them 30 cents of money. Like, legitly, they were losing 30 cents. That I can see. Maybe, okay, you want to, if you really want to put people, you really kind of want to go, okay, guys, this is what's going on. Make it where you have to pledge a minimum of $5 across all the patrons. Support 5 different people for $1, support 1 person for 5, whatever, and make it where patron it breaks even. That makes sense. this new method that they were going to do was charging them the fee. One, I think that's illegal. I honestly think that charging the person the fee, which is what they were doing, is actually illegal. But anyways.
No, because the well, I know at least like here in Georgia and in Florida, and I'm pretty sure anywhere, anytime I've gone to a government office, there's a convenience fee that is X percentage of whatever I'm paying if I use a card.
Yeah, but
that's to cover their fee, that processing fee.
Fair enough.
You can totally, as a business, pass your processing fees on to your customers. When I was running my food truck, I used to have it where, it would calculate everything and all that. Taking in my processing fees, I wanted to make everything nice round numbers because $4.99 bugs the shit out of me. It's $5.
Right.
So
it also makes your life easier when someone hands you a $5 pill.
Exactly. So, so all those, I just got it so that it was all lumped in and was nice and simple.
Right.
That way, you swipe that card and it's just done. So it's not illegal to charge someone a fee for using a card. It's the same thing as saying, hey, you got to spend $5. It's not illegal to say you can't swipe your card unless you spend $5 because it's costing me, if you use something like Square, it's 2.75%.
It depends on what state you're in, because in the state of Washington, you cannot put that you're going to charge a person. Okay, you can't put a minimum on a debit card purchase. You can't say you have to spend $5. You have to accept their debit card no matter what in the state of Washington. So it's honestly, I believe it's dependent on where you live.
So debit cards are different because debit cards do not have a card processing fee. That's why if you ever go some places and they ask you credit or debit and you say doesn't matter, they'll press the debit button because that is a direct transaction from your bank account to them and not actually using the card processing.
But the thing is, it's still the same with credit. In Washington State, they cannot tell you have to spend a certain amount to be able to use your credit card. It's just they have to be able, if they accept credit cards or debit cards, they have to accept it no matter how much you're purchasing. They've made it illegal in the state of Washington to set a limit. Anyways, we're getting way, way the fuck off topic, and people have been complaining about this. So back off of credit cards, back on podcast. Now, Dan, you're the newbie when it comes to this. I think Nick and I have been doing this for a little bit longer. Now, I'm not saying that means your show is any. Honestly,
it's fine, mate. I don't know what you mean.
I would honestly, no, in all truthfulness, Dan, I would be amazed if you do not get more downloads a month than I do.
I don't know about all that. It's kind of like I'm kind of very simplistic in my nature and things, and to be honest, I'm not. I know it's going to sound a bit stupid to say it, verbalize it, but I'm not. Downloads don't really bother me in terms of my show to make sense. Like when I spoke to Jim Wappel on my podcast, it was just because he's amazing. And I just wanted to listen to him talk and just ask him some questions that I could. So, when it comes to choosing a provider and when it comes to kind of doing this, that, or the other, transaction fees and Patreon, I'm kind of like a little bit removed from that because I just want to speak to people and put it up there, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, no, it totally does. It totally does. Just like the reason that we run Models Workshop after hours is because we like to get together.
Yeah.
And just sit down and bullshit.
Uh-huh.
This isn't honestly, we get yelled at. The number one thing we get yelled at about on this podcast is the fact that we don't talk about painting enough. Okay. And we're a painting podcast, and people complain the most that we don't talk enough about painting because we'll sit there and Yeji will talk about how her mom pissed her off. That's where Yeji is at. For any of our longtime listeners, she's actually dealing with her mom, so we should have some really interesting stories on the Christmas special. And that means I get to deal with 2 weeks of PMSing Yeji, post-mother syndrome. But No, and I totally get that. And this is the reason why we're on episode 83 is because I love sitting down and getting together. And now we don't talk about the 70s. That was a dark time. But now that we make it where we go out, we've got guests all the way to like up to episode 90. And we have other people who are waiting on slots to come on. And that's what this show is about, to bring people like you guys on, talk about podcasting, talk about painting, just bullshit about what's going on. So I totally get it. Now, out of curiosity, how many downloads an episode are you getting?
Over 2,000 at the moment. I started back in kind of February time, late February, and the reason started it just because it's called Paint All the Minis because I like to listen to podcasts while I paint, and a lot of shows were news related, like, you know, weekly updates on things that have come out, or they were tactics based for certain tabletop games, and very much like yourself. I mean, I heard your podcast very early in my kind of exploration as well. It's just I wanted to listen to some people yabbering on, so to speak, while I was painting my models. So it's not necessarily about painting models as in this is how you paint X or this is how you paint Y. It was more kind of just like you're in a room with some people when you're not in a room with some people, if that kind of makes sense.
Did you say you get 2,000 downloads an episode?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
I fucking quit.
But then again, like I was saying, with my, I don't know if that's good. I've got no idea what is good, what is bad. I've got no idea. So is that good?
That's very good.
Dude, I've been doing this for 3 years, and we're breaking 400.
It's good though. It's no. But that's the thing. That's why I don't dedicate any of my brain space to that. I just like talking to people, and I like listening to your show. I like listening to lots of different. I've listened to a Skirmish Supremacy podcast as well. I just like listening to it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just overcomplicating it.
We got the motherfucking Andy Weir of miniature podcasting on the show. He's like, "Hey, I sold 3,000 copies of my book on self-published on Amazon. Is that good? Hey guys, is 3,000 copies good? I really honestly I don't know. Is 3,000 copies great?" Yeah, everyone else was like, I did 10, and I thought I was doing pretty good. He's like, I got 10,000. Dan, the first miniature podcaster to be signed to a major contract for a studio. I'm going to go get my bottle of wine. Hold on a second.
Well, I said I wasn't drinking tonight, but...
You think I'm joking. All right, so
no, actually,
apparently I'm absolutely failing at this podcast thing. I should hire Dan as my agent.
It's not a failure. We're going through a restructure.
No, I'm talking even during our peak times, whenever everyone was listening, it was 400 an episode.
Do you enjoy it?
I did.
So if you enjoy it, who cares? Who cares? Just plant your flag and say this is what I do. Don't care.
And
maybe I need to come on your podcast. Shit.
And Dan, I mean, you got a good point. As long as you're enjoying it, who cares about it? But I do know that at the same time, and some of the things that we mentioned when it's like, what do we want to talk about? It is finding the guests, having the guests, getting it out there, because when you have the guests, you want to share what the experience, the conversation, and so that's where hey, 2,000 downloads, that's awesome. How are we getting it? Skirmish Supremacy gets anywhere from we've had some lows of in the 200s up to 500s. I think once we hit 1,000 or 900 for an episode download.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, I think what I did is I kind of went back right the way to the start, and when I first was thinking about doing a podcast, it was like, right, what am I looking to achieve? What am I looking to get out of this? What is the point of doing this? And first and foremost, all I wanted to do was I wanted to chat with people who were amazing in their own individual ways. So speaking to not anyone in particular. I don't want to speak to like big guns. I just wanted to speak to my first 5 podcasts were just to friends that I'd met, and I just wanted the conversation to be interesting in the sense of this is what I'm doing. what are you doing? I'm sitting at my little painting table right now painting leaves. What are you doing? And to have that kind of organic chat about connecting those dots in the background of like, what am I doing that you're also doing? What are you doing that I'm also doing? And so just trying to kind of generate generic fun chit chat.
What's absolutely hilarious about this, but if I remember correctly, about episode 2 of Paint All the Minis, I said, "Hey, I'd like to come on."
Oh, did you say that? Sorry, mate.
And apparently, I really need to because there's some kind of magic going on.
Yeah, there's a fee now, mate. It's $1,000 to be a guest on the show. I'm only joking, mate. You're welcome anytime.
It's called the Larry fee.
No, and here's the thing, because your format is absolutely and completely different from my format. Uh-huh. My format, I'm just like fuck a bunch of shit, cut horror slut, and that's how we are. We talk how we want to talk. We don't edit ourselves, and our podcasts are very long. Sometimes they're wordy. They go on tangents. Okay, they primarily remain on tangents, and we do what we want to do. I have another podcast that I'm planning to launch one of these days, and it's going to be highly edited, highly processed, 15 to 20 minutes long. I may actually sit down with Jim about this and talk, because I think this would be something he'd be interested in. And really short, concise, and it's nothing but painting information. Nothing else. No tangent, no sidebars. All that shit would be edited out, and it would be highly processed. It would be highly edited. And I know for a fact that podcast will be 10 times more popular than After Hours. Because you look at the shows like Howard Stern or even Kevin Smith or any of these guys. You look at them, and then you look at the big talk show hosts. You look at the people that are on the mainstream media. Their viewership is 10 times what Kevin Smith and what Howard Stern is. But you know what? They get to speak whatever they want. And it's their decision. So, that's... Like, I even told you, I think by episode 5, I was listening to your show, Dan. I was like, you know what? You're going to be bigger than we are. And I know you are. Because you go after a different demographic. Because the people who... everyone can listen to your show. A teacher, okay, our buddy Brandon over in Louisville can go, hey guys, you should go listen to Paint All the Minis by Dan. You can do that because you're family friendly.
Yeah,
we're not.
Yeah, I get that, mate. I get that, and I don't swear and cuss, and not that that's a good or a bad thing. I get that. I get that completely. Yeah, I do. But then equally, like I kind of said a couple of times, I don't. All I do is enjoy doing what I'm doing. And I just kind of like roll that out there. So if there's ever a time where I'm thinking, I obviously work like all you guys do. I don't do this, full time. I don't do it part time. I work full time. So I've got a very small amount of time to dedicate to the podcast stuff. So editing is a very low kind of. I don't want to do a lot of it. It all goes down to the chat that I'm going to have with people. So any energy that I have and any time that I have is put into who am I speaking to this week? And how can I make that chat fun and engaging? And anything else, just if there's one listener, great. If there's 0 listeners, I don't care, because it's the chat with the person that I'm looking for, not anything else.
And that's exactly what it is. And that's what I was trying to. What I basically was, I was agreeing with you. We do enjoy what we're doing, and we said from the very get-go that it didn't matter if we had 10 people listening to us. Well, if we had 10 people listening to us, we'd be like, hey, find us over on YouTube. That shit's free. And we can actually get paid for it. But, no, I'm totally agreeing with you. I'm proud of our 400 listeners, because that means there's 400 people out there who either can tolerate our humor or actually legitimately find it funny. The best messages I get is a dude that messages me and go, dude, I fell out of my chair at work today because I was laughing so hard when you talked about your wife sticking her finger up your dog's ass. Yeah. I was literally crying on the floor, and my boss may be drug testing me tomorrow, but it was so worth it. And that's what gets it.
It's amazing. It's amazing that somebody would take the time to listen to me for an hour talk. And, that's why I try and talk a minimum and let the other person talk. But it's amazing that someone would engage with it. And if that's 1, 10, 50, whatever, that, and so we're on the same page with that, very much so.
Yeah, and it's all about, like, when we were doing this weekly, we decided, and we've actually had fans ask us, hey, can you go back to weekly? Can you go back to weekly? And we tell them no, because at a week, it was a job. Because then I didn't have any weekends that I could go out with my friends or sit down and play Magic or go to the gaming shop or go out with my wife and my kids, go find a movie. At that point, it was a job. When we cut it back to once every 2 weeks, it wasn't a job. After that, whenever we start hitting that 2-week period, I really look forward to sitting down and talking to Jim and talking to Yeji and Clint and Gildy and Rie and everyone else. I look forward to it. I look forward to talking to our guests. And that, you're right, that right there, okay, for people who are listening, this is a hard fact rule. It isn't about downloads. I have 400. Nick has 400. Dan has 2,000. Does it make it any less fun for any of us because of those numbers? No. And if you're looking at those numbers, and it really makes that much of a sense, like, okay, during the 70s, our listenership fell off to 270 downloads roughly on average for the 70s, because our content was shit. We weren't talking about miniature painting. We were sitting here, I was sitting there bitching. Just nonstop, blah, da, 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 bitching. And our listeners got tired of it, and I saw that. And I didn't change because, our numbers are falling. I changed it back to the way it was because, one, it flagged me as, hey, you're being a dick, stop being a dick. And two, I don't want to disappoint the fans that we have. Now, I'm not going to pander to them. There are people who ask us to do stuff, and I decline. I'm like, no, I can't do that. But on the same token, if someone goes, hey, can you give me a shout out? I'll be like, sure, Andrew, cool. Hey, what's up? Drive that truck. Make sure to keep the shiny side up. Stuff like that. Because they're our fans. This is stuff that we like to do, and we love. Like, you would be amazed how many people will message me, and they'll ask me something, and I'll be like, hey, can I just call you? Because me talking on the phone's a lot easier than trying to text. And I'll call them, and they're fucking just, like, mind blown. They're like, holy shit, you called me. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, I never thought I'd talk to you. And I was like, have you not realized I like to fucking talk? I never stop. I mean, it should be pretty obvious. But, it's reactions like that make it worth it, and I don't want to disappoint the fans. So basically, in a nutshell, don't watch the numbers. Do what you enjoy. Do what you love. And make it where people will come to you. But on the same token, don't be a total asshole like I was, and drive everyone away, too.
So why did you start like Skirmish Supremacy, Nicholas?
So it's been to talk to the indies, talk to the little companies starting up, the people that you don't always see a lot about. A few weeks ago, we had Jarl, the Twilight Below, on, and it was just amazing. The guy's been working on this game for 20 years, and just everything that he's put into it, all the sculpting he's done, everything. And yet, until, just before he was on the podcast, when I just randomly happened to stumble on him, didn't know anything about it.
It's amazing. Those stories are quality. And I've spoken to a few people recently who've just created their own games. There's a guy called James Baldwin who made the Drowned Earth recent Kickstarter. I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of that. And there was another guy, Sean Sutter, who makes Relic Blade, and then just recently a guy called Jason Rutherford who makes a game called Legend of Caladazia, which is like a kind of spaceship game. And those stories, Nicholas, of just people just doing stuff because they love it, because they're passionate about it. If I can help them to expose their amazing hard work and thousands of hours in the background to 3 people, then I don't see myself as doing anything special. I just see myself as saying, hey, what you're doing is great. Can we find more people that like what you're doing?
Well, I know you've had Corey from Witchborn on. He says, I guess about 9 times or so he's been on your show.
Yeah, he's. We actually did a series, or Tim did a series with him, going over the basics of how to play the Witchborn, and that's been a pretty good series. I know, not exactly my local game store. It's down a little ways, but they've got a thriving Witchborn community that kind of popped up right around, just the fact that we were even talking, that we were putting out those videos. So that's happened. And actually, I'm getting ready to launch a similar series with the Dust USA folks for Dust 1947. Mm-hmm. Where we sit down and we do, it's kind of a little bit more about the tactics and about the game.
So is there anything that you like to get out of your podcast? Is there an end game that you're working towards, or is it just something you enjoy as a hobby within itself?
So for the most part, it's finding all these things. Now it's kind of being the kid looking in the window because. In the candy store window, because I'm just drooling over this. I have about $1,000, that I'm looking at of stuff from a few different companies, and I'm like, I can't buy it all. So I love finding it, and then I love sharing it. But I love it because I'm an addict and I like collecting shiny things.
Yeah. That's cool, man. So Jim, can you remember the show that we did? It seems a long time ago now. Can you remember when we had a chat?
It was fantastic. It was like Charlie Rose. It was 2 people and a table and a conversation.
So I can talk to you about our podcast now, right? So I contacted you. What did you think when I contacted you? And why did you say yes? Can you remember that, or did you say yes to anything?
Oh, no, I remember saying yes, going, ha ha ha, he has no idea what he is in for. Because it was just there's tons of ideas, everything is idea, there's a new thing, hey, I'm trying this. That's what it was. It was the entire time.
Yeah. Do you get asked to go on a lot of podcasts? Is that something you get asked to do a lot? Do you get contacted a lot for these things?
I do. And it's got to be the same reason why they always ask me to go teach somewhere. Mm-hmm. Because 90% of the people that are doing it, you have to have a personality. You have to be a cheerleader, a mentor, a psychologist. You have to be all of these things, a motivational speaker. And that's people like that, because you're basically telling them, yeah, you can do this. In my old painting class that I did at ReaperCon, it's funny, because I walked in the class saying, all right, guys, I haven't touched oil paints in 3 months. I have no idea what we're going to do here now. And that set them at ease, because they're used to this. The instructor is almighty and on high and unreachable. It's like, so this guy, he's just going to do stuff in front of us. And I said, here, guys, here's 3 colors. Here's a brush. Here's a miniature. I trust you. You can figure it out. Mm-hmm. You can. And they couldn't believe it. I think they're more used to an hour and a half of somebody saying, these are the 25 things you must do or you will die. And I said, nah, it's not that complicated. I'm doing it. Can't be that complicated. And I think that's why people like the crazy mad scientist Bob Ross, MacGyver kind of all rolled into one. Because they want to see, is Jim going to take a piece of masking tape, gum, and a lifesaver and make a nuclear reactor out of it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of giggling because Dan has just completely taken over my show.
Sorry, mate.
He's just sitting there. He's like, he started interviewing Jim. I'm just sitting there fucking cracking up. I was like, all right, I said I was having a bad day and I didn't want to talk much. All right, rock on.
Sorry, mate.
Podcast is like a Russian doll. It's a podcast within a podcast within a podcast. You didn't realize that we are also with the Skirmish Supremacy. We're actually playing a game too. You can't see it.
It's a pododox. No, Dan, dude, seriously, don't apologize. I know you're British and you don't have much of a sense of humor. This is called sarcasm. I'm very sarcastic.
Actually, Dan, be very, very careful. Larry tends to start sucking in his guests. You know,
right?
He gets his claws in them, and he doesn't let them leave, especially if they talk a lot.
Okay.
So
No. That's
careful.
That's not entirely true. It was
Jim.
No. Oh no. I got witnesses to this. We invited Jim on because I've known Jim since the Screaming Heretic podcast. He was on the main show. I ran a feature on it. That's how we kind of met. When Screaming Heretic fell apart, it broke apart into 3 different podcasts. Mine, Anonymous Tabletop. No, actually 4 different podcasts. Mine, Anonymous Tabletop, the other one that died after like 3 episodes, and then Misfit Toys. And I've always had a deep respect for Jim, and Jim just is a great guy. So I finally, after 80 episodes, invited him on the show, which I should have done 60 episodes ago. And Jim, like, shit you not, out of the blue, messages me. He's like, "Hey, so I'll be out of town this upcoming recording day, but I should be back for the next one." And I'm sitting there, I messaged Yeji, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not entirely sure, but I think Jim just invited himself onto our podcast." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, I showed her the message, and she's like, "Okay, do you have a problem with that?" I was like, "No."
I'm just sitting here painting miniatures the whole time. You know me. That's the last 4-hour thing. I was painting a bunch of stuff during that time. I'm like, yeah, I'll just spread my evil thoughts everywhere.
Right, and he was like, "Dude, I absolutely loved it because I came on, I talked, and it broke the monotony of being able to come on and do the podcast and paint at the same time and talk to you guys and get feedback, and it was just really great." And I was just like, okay, you have those guests that come on and then they leave, and then you have those guests that come on, and next thing you know, you're making announcements that you now have a permanent guest host on your podcast because fuck it, why not?
I'm the proverbial guy sitting on your beanbag chair naked eating Cheetos now.
I will go get you some more puffs, my friend. More puffs.
Though I have a few guests that are pretty regular, at least at this point, none of them have firmly asked themselves in another seat to showing up.
It wasn't ask. That was the thing.
Jim I didn't say ask. I said asked.
That's what I'm ask. Okay, ask. I have I slur my S's sometime, and I'm about 3/4 of a bottle into a bottle of wine. You thought I was joking. But anyways, no, Jim was like, just straight up was like, "So when are we recording next?" And I was like, 9 days. He's like, "Well, I'm going up for Thanksgiving. When's the next date?" And I was like, "This day." And he's like, "Cool, I'll be there." And it's like, it was like legitly, there was no asking or anything else. And the best part about it was there was like, everyone was just like, okay, because I asked, because Models Workshop, we, there's 12 of us. And anytime anybody comes as part of Models Workshop, which, especially on the podcast, I'm like, I ask everyone, it's like, "Hey, I think Jim wants to come on permanently." He hasn't outright said it, but he's really kind of have hinted at it. I was like, "Anybody have a problem?" And of course, everyone was like, "Hell no. Get him on every show." I was like, "All right, cool." That's what I was figuring. So that's how it happened. It was like no asking. It was just kind of like, it's that dude that comes to the gaming session that's really cool and you like hanging out, and he keeps showing up. And you're just like, fuck it. This guy's awesome. Of course he can come to every painting session ever.
And I can be the guy who's painting minis the whole time. All the stuff that, like, you guys can't see this, but here's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it naked.
Because here's the deal.
I've already seen Larry do, painting naked,
up.
So.
Shut up. I wasn't naked. Damn it, I had orange underwear on. Pumpkin, rise again!
It totally matched your shirt, though. I mean, I was quite impressed with your color coordination.
Yeah. So, also, now I've had a really bad week, and I'm going to share a story for anyone who has a social media presence, who has a voice in the community. And I think all 3 of the podcasters, Jim, everybody here, except for Rie, because she never talks, so she can't have a voice. You are still there, aren't you?
I am.
Okay. Once in a while, I have to ask to make sure. So, So I learned a very important lesson. I pissed off probably one of the larger shitlords in the Magic the Gathering community. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to say anything. I screwed up. I inadvertently doxed his address out. It wasn't intentional. I've known this dude's address for years. He's pissed off the entire Magic the Gathering community recently, and I hadn't doxed him. I didn't dox him the last time he pissed off the entire Magic the Gathering community. It wasn't my intentions to piss him off, or to dox him this time. Something was happening, and there was a discussion going on between me and another person, and I posted a map between the person who's pissing off the community and this other person. And it was kind of an, aha, now I see why you're kind of taking his side on things, because... And I'm going to leave it at that, because the other person, I had a nice long conversation with the other person on the telephone, and I worked everything out. Because I wasn't trying to shit on either of them. It was just an aha moment. One of those, I have discovered light, and you just post it real quick, and you don't think about what's going on. So, accidentally doxed this guy, and he got pissed. And no excuse. He got pissed. And he ended up he posted what I had said on my Facebook wall, because before last Sunday, which was my birthday, my Facebook was open. I didn't have anything closed to friends only or anything, because I had nothing to hide. I want people to be able to access me. So he got pissed off. And I'm not saying that he was wrong, but when he posted my message, he has a large enough reach that I started getting messages from people, hate messages, because he used his voice. He has a voice in his community. He used his voice. I was getting people spamming Models Workshop. I was getting people spamming the Six Latino Caucus, which I volunteer at. I had people messaging me personally. I had people taking images off of my Facebook and making some very not so nice memes. Some very not so nice memes. And I probably have a Reddit thread about me. I don't use Reddit, so I don't know. And some other stuff. And this is a public service announcement about your voice and using it responsibly. Because I've called people out before. I've called people that I don't like out. And I publicly called them out. And I never imagined what the ramifications could be. I actually talked to one of the people that I called out. I still don't like him. I don't like him one bit. I still stand behind every word that I said, what my personal opinion of the guy is. That's the key term. Personal opinion should stay personal. If someone does something in the community that's fucked up, then call them on it as a company. Like when Cool Mini decided to take Chibi out of the painting competitions. That damages the community. Call them on it. But just because you don't like a person, calling them out can have serious ramifications. Like he thinks the guy in question thinks that I sent all my people. I was like, hey, everyone go to his page and give him 1-star reviews. I didn't. I gave him a 1-star review because I didn't like what he said. What happened? I did not tell my followers to. I noticed something later on in the year and I pointed it out. And I guess fans of Models Workshop, people who follow me, went to him. And he said that people harassed him. So if you have a voice in the community, if you decide to do a podcast, if you decide to do something like this, if you decide to stand up and be a figurehead, be very careful what you say. Because you don't know what your followers will go and do. Like, the sad thing is this person that I'm talking about knows what his followers will go and do, but he persists in... doing what he does. My personal goal from this point on is I'm not going to do that anymore. Now, if a company screws up, I'm going to call a company out. And if an individual screws up to a point where it's justified, I might say something. But I learned a lesson this last Sunday. And personally, anyone who wants to get into this biz, and Dan, Nick, Jim, all of you guys, it's very important to watch what you say, because you have people and you don't know honestly what the mental mind state of all the people who follow you is, or how much Larry, he said something and that person's bad, so I'm going to go fuck with him too. And that was never my intentions. If I have a grief with a person, I have a grief with a person. I don't need white knights, black knights, gray knights, blue knights. I thank anyone who likes me that much, but it really made me think. Just be responsible with how you talk and what you say about people, because it can really turn around and fuck with them. It ruined my birthday. I mean, my entire birthday, I was dealing with people spamming the shit out of me, and I'm having to delete shit off my wall saying he's a big pedophile in the Magic the Gathering community. That's the type of shit that I was getting. So, and like I said, I fucked up too, because instead of going and just messaging him immediately and going, hey dude, I fucked up, I inadvertently, because I did not do it on purpose, because I know way more information about this dude than I think he knows I know. And the fact that I accidentally released a generalized area of where the guy lives, I could send people pictures of his damn house from Street View, but that's not what my intentions were.
I learned
it was an accident.
I learned years ago that I have to be, whether it's positive, negative, or whatever, with the blog, I have to be super careful, because there were one company, their sales went up 440% in the space of a week because I did a few blog posts on their product. And there's another company
I know what company you're talking about.
Well, there's another one that was going to discontinue. Actually, several companies were going to discontinue products until I messed around with them and found A, use for them, and B, was able to describe this to other people, because maybe the product was it had a horrible name. The name they gave it actually just destroyed the product, because people thought it did something else. And then they tried it, and it didn't do the thing they thought it was going to do. Then they said, this sucks, and they never used it again. And they were going to discontinue these products. I have actually had some manufacturers say, I hate you, because now I have to keep that product in my SKUs, because I was going to dump it. And now you just saved the damn thing.
I know of one product that you're talking about for sure. I guarantee. I know, because you told me which one of them. You can talk about them, dude. If you want to say who they are, feel free.
Yeah, it's just I had to. Then people at Adepticon a few years ago, they come up and they said, and this was several someones, as in like a half a dozen people said, Jim, you got to understand. There's, if you're reaching those 3,000 people a day like you are, what you say is going to have impact. And it was when I started to see these kind of numbers, I said, holy smokes, this makes a difference. And they said, yeah, you can help companies. Something else can do the opposite. It can destroy a company too. So you have to really, there's something that you tried and it just didn't do what you wanted it to do, you have to either phrase that very carefully and let people know, hey, I tried doing this, thought it might do this, didn't. It's not that it's a bad product. But you gotta be real selective in your language, or just not say anything at all, because it can have a devastating effect, unintended devastating effect. Because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I had to realize that, if there's something that just didn't work, that's why I do experiments. And if they don't work, I let people know when they don't work. Because otherwise they'll be afraid to ever try something, because it can't fail. They do stuff and it never failed. I have to do this, and it has to work 100% of the time. But that was definitely something I took out of a couple of Adepticons ago, and I really tried to adhere to that. Just okay, well, if this thing doesn't quite work the way I wanted it to, I just, I was trying something, maybe this is not quite what it was meant for, or I'm pushing the boundaries of it. Instead of, they'd look at it, a cursory look, and go, oh man, didn't work for Jim. Jim hates it. Kind of like the old Mikey hates it commercials for, was it Life Cereal or something like that? I have to. Yep. I have to definitely. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with games. I can't just go around and say, I hate that game. That game sucks. No, maybe it's just not for me. There's nothing wrong with the game, but it's just not something that appeals to me, or what my interest is, or whatever at the time. I have to phrase that carefully, because if I just kind of give them the impression that I hate that game, it could be a perfectly fine game. It's just not something that suits me. Because there have been people, oh my gosh, in the last couple of years, that Jim, you would love this game. Jim, you would love this game. And I had to say, well, I'm sure I would. My brain is getting tinier, and it can't handle more than one rule set. That's already occupied by a rule set. It cannot accept any more. And it wasn't that these were bad games. And I said, I'm not going to absorb any more new games. This is it. This is all the brain can take.
And, that... part of that, actually annoys me that, people would come up and be like, hey, you got to watch what you say. At the same time, it is, there is a, you can't be flippant with how you say something, because it can have a negative effect. Though, ironically, most of the time that I, express something somewhat negative, usually people are going out to buy it because they think it's going to annoy me that they bought it, which amuses me even more than anything else, because I'm like, it's just not me. If you bought it, you bought it. That's you.
Well, what can happen is people don't, since it is obviously a text-based thing and pictures, people, a lot of times they don't even read the text. They'll just look at the pictures, or they'll just curse, they'll read something and say, well, I think he just hates this. And then that starts getting spread around, and it's totally out of context. I know there's one website, I forget what the heck it's called, they'll take my blog posts, and they'll take a few images, and they'll just post it on their site, and people just go berserk, making fun of it, and just saying all kinds of crazy things, because they're not seeing the original context of the post. All they see is a couple images grabbed from my blog post with no context whatsoever. And it's just, I wish I could go over there and just block them from doing it. Because they're taking all the content and totally destroying it, and I don't know what the heck, why they do this. But it's like their entire...
You can send a copyright claimant to their host, and their host will take down their website.
Okay, because it seems like this place, I forget what the heck it's called again, but it's been around forever, I guess for years and years and years, and they just sort of go around to different people's blogs. I don't know what, just waste all their time doing that, and then the original person has a good intention, but because they destroy all the context, then, like the recent thing was an Arena Rex thing. They like to take I guess they have apparently a section in their thing where it's just all naked stuff. Well, it was the Arena Rex Medusa figure with the sheer clothing, and they posted that, and the next thing you know, people are just ripping on that thing like crazy, because they have no idea that it's for a game, that it's supposed to be the size that it is, because it's supposed to be like a monster, basically. And they just, oh my gosh, they just went nuts about this thing. Because all the original content was wiped away, and that is something. That's why I try to be judicious with what I say, because who knows if someone's going to just kind of take part of it and repurpose it somewhere, and then once it gets on the internet, everything on the internet is true, and now you can't stop the tide. I had people getting on my case yesterday, because I just happened to use the title of Stalingrad in the title of my blog post. They said, well, you can't have that on that figure. They didn't have those in 1943. They didn't have those at Stalingrad. Now, of course, if they were there 70 plus years ago and somehow didn't die like everybody else did, and you were there to check on every single Russian soldier that showed up that he didn't have one of those things, well, that's great. But I told him at least 4 times. I said, guys, this is 1/3 of a very large army that's going to cover all 7 years, from 38 to 45. And they just said, but you said Stalingrad. And I said, for the 15th time, some of these guys will be used there. The guy that you're bitching about ain't going to be used there. And if he's in that army creator list, well, then you are a total you-know-what. But they wouldn't drop it. Finally, I had to just kill the Facebook link, because they would not drop it. And I already had it linked to 12 other places, so it's no big deal to me, but I just basically had to silence their crazy platform, because they were taking this thing into a bizarro land direction.
Yeah. People are weird.
Do you guys run into that with your podcasts, where someone they only listen to a part of it, and all of a sudden something goes nuclear, where they say, well, wait a second, you just took 20 seconds of an hour-and-a-half podcast and made it out to be this, when it was by no means that.
Oh, no, most of the time they're pretty much correct in their assumption of how much of a dick I am.
Since we've focused mostly on indie creators and all that, no, I don't usually run into people taking stuff out of context. Thankfully,
it's kind of difficult to take things out of context with me because I'm pretty much straight to the point. As in, if I don't like a product, I'll be like, "This kind of was pretty shitty." Now, and that's another reason, folks, listener land. If you ever if for a long time listeners, I don't talk about a lot of negative stuff unless I honestly truly believe that it's negative to the point that it will have a negative impact on our fans. If there's a product I don't like, okay, prime example. Let's say I don't like a model that's painted by Jim. And I talk about this model. And I'll say, and yes, I will say, actually, this has happened to me with Ben Comet. I will talk about, okay, Jim, honestly, it looks great. You're seriously talented. I truly believe that your techniques are fucking flawless. You did it well. I don't like the style. Now, what happens is, instead of me, all that beginning portion of like, hey, Jim, you're super talented, your model's fucking great, you pulled it off amazingly, it's done well, all people focus on is Larry doesn't like Jim and the models he paints because he doesn't like that model. And because what happened was, I used to use Ben Comet as an example a lot, now I'm going to use Jim as an example a lot. Because Ben Comet is known in the community. And he's a person who's amazingly fucking talented. And I just happen not to like his particular style. Nothing against the guy. Nothing against how amazingly fucking awesome of a painter he is. I just don't like his style. And someone actually messaged me and they're like, do you hate Ben? I was like, what? No, he's a fucking amazing guy. Like, truly, he's one of those guys that he's not only just a great painter, he's an amazing person. Like, well, it seems like you hate him. It's like, why? Well, you on the podcast, you always talk negative about him. It's like, because I don't like his particular style? I don't like Picasso. That doesn't mean he's a horrible fucking painter. It just means I don't like that style of artwork. Everybody has their particulars. People might not like my style of painting Eldar, and that's fine. Don't say I'm a shitty painter just because you don't like my style. Now, if you think I'm a shitty painter because, I'm a shitty painter, so that's cool. But don't say because you don't like my style of painting that I'm a shitty painter, because that's not true. Just like and that's the main thing with me is people. I use Ben a lot in examples because he's well known, and everybody and their mom knows he's a fucking amazing painter. And yeah, I've gotten the message like, you must hate Ben. You fucking hate him, don't you? I was like, no, I think he's actually, truthfully, my personal opinion of Ben is that he's beyond his painting, that he's just an awesome and amazing person. I've watched him do a couple things that were just like totally cool. Sinjin, when he had his roof caved in by that branch and it was coming up on winter and his studio was in that area, and Ben dropped him $100. Almost no one else donated to Sinjin for this, but Ben dropped him $100, and he was one of the first people to donate. That's the type of person Ben is. No, I can't hate the guy. I don't know the guy. I don't know him. I haven't sat down and had a beer with him, so no, I don't hate him. I think but everything I've ever seen about the guy is the fact that he's fucking awesome. But yeah, that was the big thing I had, is because I was using him as an example. I hated Ben. So I'm going to use Jim now, because at least Jim can tell me to go fuck off on the show.
Oh, I'll just put naked things on your nakedness. That's what I'm going to do. I'm painting my own miniature of you over here.
Make sure it's an orange.
Well,
Pumpkin rides again!
I know, it's a wee bit purple.
It's purple? I guess it has been a while.
Just hasn't seen the sun in a while.
I hope not. It's been... Hell, when was the last time that was? That was probably Las Vegas in 2002? Yeah, Vegas in 2002.
And moving on to the next part of the topic.
Nice.
So, Rie, you talk.
Yes.
What are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm still putzing around with my watercolors.
What are you painting with your watercolors?
What am I painting? I am painting a porg. from the Star Wars movie that I haven't seen yet. But I will. I will do that this weekend. But,
yeah, that's actually, I've already purchased my tickets for the 24th. That's a kind of a family, I can't do opening nights. I can't do large, crowded places. It causes my anxiety to spike into fucking obscene levels. So I'm like, I want to enjoy this new movie, so I'm gonna wait a couple weeks after release before going and watching it. By then, the theater should only be half full. Because from everything that I've heard about this movie, most of my friends are going to go watch it half a dozen times.
My husband's already promised to watch it at least 4 times in the theater. And that was before he saw it today. So, I can see that.
I have already...
He saw it without you?
He went with a work group. I just started my job in July, and I was like, no, I'm not going to take the time off because I want to be a good girl and prove that I can just keep on working. And so it was like just a mini sacrifice to not take the day off.
So, yeah, I've already said that I'm going to watch it at least twice. And I know this because the last 3 movies that have come out in theaters, me and my son, we watch it as a family, like all of us go. Everybody in the family goes. And then my son and I will at least usually go and watch it in 3D because my wife and my daughters don't like 3D, but me and my son do. So we'll go watch it in 3D, and then we'll probably watch it a 3rd time. I can pretty much say that we're going to watch it probably 3 times in theater. I'm probably going to go to the IMAX 3D in Muncie and go watch it.
That'd be really cool in IMAX.
Hell yeah. Reclining seats and everything else. Man, I looked up a 20-screen theater that was over in Noblesville, Indiana. We looked up that it was a 20-screen theater, and they had shows starting every 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, which means they had to at least have 6 screens showing Star Wars. They said that right now that this movie is cruising for a $200 million opening weekend domestic. Just based off... What's that, Dan?
Go ahead. I was actually just saying that I'm surprised that's not opening day.
Well, maybe I might have misread it. It might be $200 million opening day.
I mean, I don't know exactly. I just know that there's been an obscene amount of people that have already gone and seen the movie, so...
Yeah, I'm having to take a halfway hiatus from Facebook because, most of my friends are pretty cool, but there's a couple of them that are not dicks, but they're really excited. And I don't want their excitement to screw me over, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. But, it seems like... at least Star Wars movies, other movies too, but generally Star Wars movies, there's an understanding that you don't do that shit.
Right. Now, I can't wait to go watch it. I might actually have to sneak out before the rest of the family sees it and go watch it myself. Me and my son, and because like I said, we'll watch it like 3 or 4 times. We have no problems with that. Oh man. So speaking of Star Wars and all that good shit, Disney bought Fox officially, so that's kind of crazy.
There's an awesome comic that, or not even comic, but it does have a image attached with a little story of basically Disney taking over the world. But it's pretty funny because it's got riot police, but they've all got Mickey Mouse helmets on. So that's floating out there now that they've bought Fox.
Here's another thing that's really crazy. Yet another thing that has been predicted by The Simpsons. There was an episode of The Simpsons that showed the Fox headquarters, and it was a subdivision of Disney underneath the sign. So
my husband pointed that out. I had to laugh at that. It's pretty awesome.
That is yet another thing that has been... Fuck Nostradamus. Bart Simpson. Seriously.
Well, I mean, The Simpsons has been on so long that, you throw a lot of darts out there, eventually some of them are going to stick.
Yeah, but the ones that they typically hit on are not small things. the last presidency, the election, Fox being bought by Disney, everybody being bought by Disney. My only fear about this purchase is Deadpool. What is the House of Mouse going to do with the R-rated Merc with a mouth?
Well, isn't he Sony still?
No, Deadpool's Fox. Deadpool and X-Men. Deadpool, X-Men, and Fantastic Four are Fox. That was part of... a lot of people are like, that's the reason they went after it, is because they wanted their Marvel licenses back.
Well, I mean, that was part of it to bring it back together. But I thought somebody else put out Deadpool, because that was why, even when he went to Xavier's School for the Gifted, it was only those two from there, and why mutants weren't ever mentioned and stuff like that. But I could be wrong.
No, it's a Fox license. It's Deadpool's a Fox license. No, actually, Ryan Reynolds whenever he broke the fourth wall of talking about the school for gifted children and the X-Men and why there was only Colossus there, Ryan Reynolds was actually speaking the truth when he broke the fourth wall. The studio did not want to pay the extra money for the special effects for the rest of the X-Men. So that's why they only ended up with Colossus. Which I have to admit was the best Colossus out of all the Colossuses in the X-Men movie.
He was good. I did like him.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing about that. Here's the deal. Okay, they've already said Deadpool 2 is already a thing. It's coming out. If Deadpool 2 does good in the theaters, the Merc with a Mouth is going to stay R-rated, and they're going to end up opening an R-rated Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just like they did with Marvel Max. If Deadpool 2 tanks, then we're going to end up with a PG-13 Deadpool, which is going to suck. Now, what I'd like to see is Deadpool in a normal MCU universe, but every time he goes to cuss, he has to edit himself, and eventually he breaks the fourth wall and goes, damn these fucking PG-13 movies, using the one F-bomb allowed per PG-13 film to say his displeasure for having to be in a PG-13 film.
That closely resembles one thing that I saw after Deadpool came out, and that was putting him in with the rest of the X-Men in a movie, and every time he goes to cuss, he stops himself. And then just as they get to the end, and it's holy fuck, what is that? Wolverine's standing there going, what the fuck? And you see you see Deadpool going, you stole it on me.
Oh, that would be great. That would absolutely be fucking amazing. That would be, you stole my fuck. Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
No, but so for people wanting to get into podcasting, now, so Dan, what type of equipment do you use?
I use just my laptop. So just a basic laptop, nothing swanky, and I've got a Snowball Ice. A blue Snowball Ice microphone that I use. So yeah, like I was saying way back when we started talking, to try and keep things really, really simple. Try not to get too many bits and bobs. Try not to have too many expenses and things. But yeah, it tends to work okay. It sounds all right and it does the job.
Yeah, didn't I suggest that for you?
You definitely did. Yeah, there you go, mate. Yeah, you did. You suggested that one, and I got it pretty cheap as well. So that's always a bonus.
It's when they grow up. I feel like the Ken Griffey do is Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, you were very helpful, especially in my early episodes, mate. You were one of the first people to listen to the podcast. You were one of the first people to send me a message of support, and I really value that. It was really kind of you.
Well, I mean, okay. There's no competition in the podcast game in the miniature community. If all three of us were doing daily shows, then I'd be like, oh, I can't give Dan advice, or I can't give Nick advice, because now we're competing against each other. But we're all coming out on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. There's plenty of time. Like I said, the biggest complaint about our show, other than the high school humor and locker room sense of humor, is the fact that we only publish once every 2 weeks. We don't publish enough. So I can't seriously go, okay, I can't help Nick because he's going to publish and take episodes away from me, because he's not. And the same goes with you, Dan. I can't go like, oh, I can't talk to Dan and because he might take listens away from me. That's not how it is, because none of us publish enough that it's going to, because the people who listen to our content are going to listen to our content because they like listening to the shit that we put out. It's as simple as that. And it serves no purpose for me not to, or for you not to, or for Nick not to reach out to someone who starts in the podcast community and go, hey, I was listening to your show. This is what I noticed, and this is the advice I can give you, because there's not enough podcast in the miniature community. There really isn't, and they start up and they die. Most podcasts will die before they hit episode 10, and the ones who actually make it to episode 10, almost all of them will die by the time they hit 20. So the fact that all three of us are in, Dan, what episode are you on?
50 next up.
Okay, so I'm at 80-something. Nick is in the 90s. You're in the 50s. We're the oddities. We are the oddities. Before we were here, you had Warhammer Radio and you had Screaming Heretic. Other than that, there really wasn't any podcasts that were out there regular putting out content. And even Screaming Heretic wasn't regular. It was like, hey, whenever we can get the guys together, let's talk. And there is this community. Same with like Twitch. There is this community, and it's communication. It's like, hey, Nick, I was listening to your podcast. I heard this one thing. I don't know if you noticed it or not. You might want to check it out. Dan, you could be like, hey, Larry, I was listening to this episode, and I noticed that Yeji was coming in really hot. You might want to check that out. And that's how we all grow. Just like if Ralph decides to start a podcast tomorrow, and I listen to his show, or you listen to his show, or Nick, you listen to his show, we will, if we hear something that is at least promising, then we'll be like, all right, yo, Ralph, I was listening to your show, because there's not enough of us in the community as it sits, so we need to help out and give support to the ones that are out there. I mean, I remember when your show first came out, I was talking about you on this podcast.
Yeah, you were, mate.
Like, hey, folks, you should go listen to this guy. He has a great concept. It's fucking amazing. It's awesome. And here's another thing. We talk about painting. Nick talks about indie games. You talk to basically whoever the fuck comes on your show, and you sit down and talk. We're not doing the same thing, and there's so many different things out there. You have the people who can do 40K, you've got the people who do private to press, you got the people who do dust. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of podcasts that have potential of coming out and doing something big. We don't know who's going to come out next month and be like, hey, I've got this podcast, and it's completely unique to what all of y'all are doing. So it's that complimentary deal.
Yeah, I think a lot like the painting community or the tabletop gaming industry, it's just all about, you doing your thing and other people doing their thing, and not trying to rain on anybody's parade. And like I was saying, it comes back to, first and foremost for me all the time, what am I doing it for? I'm not doing it to make anybody else feel bad. I'm not doing it I'm on my own little personal crusade. I'm just doing it because I want to chat to other people who like what I like.
Yeah, and that's that's the best reason there is. Like, I remember one thing on Dan's show, the one that I was listening to, he actually did it at a diner with the guy.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, you were sitting face to face with the person in a diner, and I told him, I was like, Dan, you know what you should do, seriously, is take your microphone to this diner again and just let it record like a solid half hour or hour of nothing but that ambiance, that diner ambiance. I was like, that was fucking brilliant. I think you should put it in the background of every podcast you do. I think that would be amazing because I think it really gives it that.
That'd be the best form. I've thought about it as it's kind of gone by in the episodes. I think the best form of the podcast that I could do would be going to meet people at their homes or at the studios and different things. Like, there's one thing talking to Jim on a Skype call. There's another thing being in his house, and seeing him. I no doubt he's a very animated chap, kind of jumping around the place and kind of, his arms flailing around. Oh, you need to do this, or check this out. And we'd be going around his entire home saying, oh, look at this thing that I've got over here. And then going to another room, oh, this is something else I got over there. So that would really add an extra level of depth to the conversation.
Yeah, you definitely would need to bring the mobile microphone with you on that one. So one of my cats lost his eye this last week. Like I said at the beginning, I don't know if I was recording at the time. This week has been shit. This entire week has just been nothing horrible. Nothing died. I didn't lose any fingers. I didn't break any bones. I didn't lose any money. But starting off with last Sunday with the accidental doxing and just progressing through this entire week has just been blah. I had a cat lose an eye, which of course is an extra vet bill, and then other stuff happened. It's just been very blasé the entire week. But speaking of cat, how did you get down here? Midnight? But it's been nonstop pirate jokes from Jim. He's like, hope your cat's doing well, and I'll send him a picture of me. He's like, arg, you better clean my litter. I'll make you walk the plank. So that's what I've ended up having to deal with Jim, and that's the type of person he is. Like random pirate jokes about my poor one-eyed cat. And for anyone wondering, okay, what happened was one of our other cats swatted at him, like cats do, and it was the worst luck hit ever. It caught him right in the middle of his eye and ruptured his eye. And so he's blind in that eye. There's nothing. He still has the eye. They sewed his eyelid shut to hopefully make it where he doesn't lose the eyeball. And so far everything is going well. Like, he is phenomenally just awesome. But he's bouncing around the house. Like, when it first happened, he was laying there. He wouldn't do anything. He'd barely eat. So we took him into the vet. They sewed his eyelid shut and they gave him some medicine. And like the day he came home, he was bouncing around the house just like a little kitten again. So we're like, all right, Diego's doing good, that's awesome. And he comes and cuddles and everything. He's turned into the sweetest cat. And he doesn't jump as much. He'll climb. We have a cat toy, and he used to jump from area to area, but his depth perception is off, so he crawls. He actually climbs like a little mountain climber now. But he's good. He's a fun little kitty. So, anybody have a painting topic they want to talk about, or any type of questions? Or anything about the podcast, or podcasting? Oh, shit, I completely forgot. Hey, Nick, what equipment do you use?
So, I actually have a blue snowball ice as well. Yep, it's been awesome. I had one. I had the model before this, just the blue snowball. I had that several years ago when I was running a different podcast, and I've kept that. And we record over Google Hangouts. It's kind of awesome. You hit the record button, it does some auto normalizing and all that, so it's even less editing at the end of the day. You basically can take it off, clear out any dead spaces you need to, clean up some background noise, and hit go. Slap your intro and outro on if you have something different or you want. And
how do you record it? What do you use to record it? So the actual Google Hangouts records the actual thing.
Well, so what you do is you set up Google Live on Air, but you use Hangouts for it, and yeah, your guests join right in, and you hit the record button. You set it to private, otherwise it'll publicly broadcast it on your YouTube. But you set it to private and hit record, and then you can just download that from Google and do any of your edits to it.
How did you figure that out? Was it just kind of trial and error, or asking somebody else? So, like, how did you figure out to use that?
Tim, the other host on Skirmish Supremacy, he stumbled on it. I forget what he was doing, but he's like, "Hey, let's try using this," because with two of us hosting it, it's always been a little bit complicated in the fact that usually if it's a one-on-one thing, we would have certain one-on-one you can just use a Skype recorder or something and record their incoming and your outgoing, and you're good to go. Or you could do like what they do here with Models Workshop, and everyone record locally. But as Larry stated at least 6 times before we started, if something happens, it can be an absolute nightmare. And actually, funny enough, I met Larry right after Lynn from Metalhead Minis was on, and she had gotten disconnected or something weird had happened with her recording, and so he was just sitting there scratching his head, going "ah," as he was trying to put it all together. So this it makes it super easy, because before that I had 2 to 3 to 4 different Skypes open, each of them being put into a mixer on my system, where then they had all their own virtual inputs and outputs, and it could get to be a headache, because I was trying to balance them all and record them so that they were all on their own channels, so that then I could normalize their audio, or if somebody was a whole lot louder than everyone else, bring them down, kill any background noise, because one of our episodes we had Tim and I, who are in 2 different places, and then we had 2 other people. One was in the UK, the other one was in Switzerland. So having all of those, everyone was a different level. It was definitely a challenge. So now throw everyone right into a Google Hangout. It does it for you.
Awesome.
Okay, so like they touched upon, we all use different equipment. I think almost everybody that is in the podcast uses Blue. Well, I mean, okay, so you're catching a pattern here. Blue is... Now, there's other brands out there, Audio Teutonica 2020, you have other ones, CAD, and Shure, I think even Monster has a mic, Razer has a mic. Stay away from the Razer mic, it's incredibly expensive. Honestly, if you're trying to podcast, or if you're wanting to podcast, a Blue Snowball Ice is your best friend. You can get them for like $40, and they are amazing. Now, what most of the hosts on Models Workshop, we use Blue Yetis. Blue Yetis is a little more expensive. It has a lot more options on it. It has inline monitoring. It has gain control on the microphone itself. You can mute it. And that's, for me, I own a Yeti and I own an Audio Teutonica 2020. And the 2020 actually sounds a little bit better. No joke, it does. It's a little bit warmer. It's a little more crisp. The reason I use the Yeti whenever I'm podcasting, I use the 2020 whenever I'm live streaming. But the reason I use the Yeti for podcasting is it has onboard mute. It has a little button on it where I can click it and it mutes. And that's important because we run a painting podcast. We actually paint sometimes, and I am known for airbrushing. So, like, if I airbrush, I need to mute the microphone, especially while I'm spraying. Now, that being said, the Snowball is great, especially in a setting when you're just chilling with your friends and are chilling on microphone and talking or doing game developer, and you're not going to be airbrushing or have a lot of noise. I've got kids, so I never know when one of my kids is going to come down here and be like, "Dad, I need to talk to you," and it's like, let me mute this real quick. Or my wife comes down. So it's all about what you're looking for. Now, a Yeti runs you about $100. Now, what we use for Models Workshop is everybody records individually. We tell everyone record Audacity because it's free. Dan's being the oddball because he paid for the software even though he's trying to be cheap. And what happens is everyone records their own, and then they export it to an MP3, and they send it to me in the share folder, and I download all of them, and I input them into Audacity. Now, everything isn't balanced on my end, but I have ultimate control. So let's say there's a port where me and Dan talked over each other. I can go and I can delete my audio and make it where it sounds like no one ever talked over each other. Or I can leave that in, and I can adjust things around, especially if there's a hot and heated argument. Or I can just cut entire segments out, and I can balance everybody's audio individually. So we tried using audio recorders, but the problem that we have is that I live in Indiana, Gildy's down south near where you live, Rie's up in the land of cheese, Yeji and Clint are over on Las Vegas. Charles is in Washington, and some of our other hosts that we've had come on and our guests that we've had come on live all over the world. So we're bringing in 7 audio streams from people that are literally all across the United States and even in other countries. So we found that it's easier, or I have found that it's easier than instead of trusting a MP3 recorder or a recorder of some sort, it's just better to have everybody's individual streams and then weave them together. Now, one thing that we're looking at doing eventually is actually taking our Skype or possibly switching to Discord and broadcasting a live broadcast out utilizing OBS and probably Skype and OBS, or possibly Hangouts and OBS, and having it capture the main broadcast screen and send it over to Twitch or YouTube Live or Facebook Live for possibly the patrons. We're still ironing out that, but making it where the patrons that follow us can actually watch us live as we're doing it with video. That's ultimately what it is. Like, I have my video running on my painting table, and they can actually watch what I'm working on and be like, hey, look, and they can completely ignore me and watch Jim do what he's working on, because who the shit would watch me while Jim's painting? And, that's a goal of ours. But ultimately, when it comes to editing everything, I have found the individual streams is, while it can be more of a headache, it's more secure. And it allows me more control, because Yeji and Clint are notoriously quiet, so I typically have to boost them. When I was utilizing MP3 recorder, when Yeji and Clint were quiet, it was impossible to boost their audio. So that's why we use individual channels. So once again, it depends on your form factor. Dan is usually 2 people, so it's easy for him just to use a recorder, bum, boom, done. Nick has 2 to 4 people on the show, so he does it his own way. So generally, basically, there's no right way. It's however you feel comfortable. I like having more control over the individual audio stream, so I do it this way. Nick's like, hey, Google Hangouts kind of does it for us, so we're going to go ahead and do that, and that's cool. Dan's like, hey, I only have 2 people. I don't really have to worry about this stuff, so I'm going to utilize what I utilize. So don't think that just because I use Libsyn and I record individual channels and da-da-da-da, don't think that my way is right. It's not any more right than what Nick does and what Dan does. It's simply how we feel comfortable doing it, what we've done. One of these days, I might actually end up trying how Nick does his and see if it works. And if it does, fuck it. If Google Play does most of the work for me, then, that's great for me. That means more time that I get to not have to worry about doing miniatures.
So you mentioned Discord in there, and actually I was looking at the Discord audio chat the other day, and they have where you can set it, and it also will do some of the normalizing. If somebody is quiet, boost them up to a certain level. If somebody's loud, bring them down to a certain level to, make sure that, everyone kind of is sounding the same. The only thing they don't have in there is a direct recorder. And, so I've been looking. There was a project. The person was running a service where it was generating it, but he had to cancel it shortly after he started it because it was killing his server. But it's still out there where you can download it and you can possibly run the bot yourself. Since you mentioned using Discord. or looking at it, because I've considered that one because people sometimes have difficulty using Google Hangouts. It surprises me. There have been some challenges on people getting in there and set up,
especially if they're mobile. Like Android hates Google Hangouts. I think that's absolutely stupid. But Android has a problem with Google Hangouts, from my observations. Like it's some sort of resource hog.
Interesting.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah, my phone will literally.
I try and cut down. I try and cut down on anything, any kind of not corner cutting, but any way that I can simplify any process is good, because it's so frustrating if you're putting all the time into doing something and something goes wrong. Just the other day, actually, I recorded a whole podcast with somebody, and they were recording. We were doing the chat over FaceTime instead of Skype, which is what I usually use. And because it was a different format, stupidly, I hadn't tested it. And so we have to do the whole podcast again, which is really frustrating. So any way you can simplify a process is amazing. Any 10 minutes you can squeeze and to give it just your leisure time, or anything that you can do to make it simple is definitely the way forward.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Unless your goal is to make money at this, which, let me tell you, there's really not. Yeah, you'll get free stuff sent to you, and you'll get some patrons that will help you pay the monthly bills and stuff. But ultimately, in this industry, if you're talking about miniatures, you're not going to make a living at this. This is going to be a hobby. Straight up. This is going to be a hobby, and that's how you should treat it. This is a hobby. Something fun to do.
How many hours do you spend podcasting per month on average?
Well, okay. Are you talking in post-processing or
all together? Everything, recording, all the stuff, prepping. How many hours per month do you spend actually, thinking, doing?
Okay, so typically, let's say there's two and a half recording sessions per month, which is about what average. Some of them are 3, some of them are 2. Let's say 2.5. Our average episode is 2.5 hours long, where we're sitting here for 2.5 hours BSing. So right there is 7.5 hours. Per 2.5 hours that I do it, let's say we have 6 guests on, it takes me about 3 hours to process all the audio. So right there is another 7.5. So we're looking at, hold up, I did that wrong. Probably 14 or 15 hours. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit more if we have, if we had a full cast this time, where Gildy was here and Yeji and Clint were here. That's the thing. If I could find a process where I could click one button and it literally runs the same processes on every channel, one after another, where I could walk away, the editing would literally take me 20 minutes because I could start it and walk away. The problem is that, okay, so I do remove ambient noise. That takes 20 minutes per fucking channel. It's ridiculous. And then I do a normalize, and then I do an equalization, and then I do a leveler, I do a normalize, and then I do a compression, remove background noise, and I do that on all 7 channels. So right now we have 5 people. For every person that's in there, it's going to take me about a half hour to do all those processes. So right here in this channel, we're looking at 2.5 hours to run the processes. Then another 25 minutes to add the intro, the outro, to remove all the dead space, and then type it up and do a cover shot and put it online.
Long time, hey?
But the thing is while I'm editing the podcast, I'll be down here and painting. So, because if you've seen the layout of my studio, the microphone for the podcast is, you're looking at the camera, right here is my hand. That means the microphone is right here at my paint station, and it's set up like that. Mm-hmm. The computer is 2 workstations down. I've got my unboxing area between my painting desk and the camera and the computer. So even though I'm at the computer, I can be painting or working on a Warhound or something like that. And then when the next process is due, I can reach over there and click the process to start and let it run, and then turn around and walk away. Mm. Oh, someone's got a baby.
Yeah, the baby's just woken up. Yeah, she's alright. She's okay. She's going back to sleep.
Little baby, don't say a word. Alright, maybe drinking that much wine during the podcast was a mistake.
Well, for me, I do the Facebook Live stuff because there is no editing involved. It's just you turn the camera on and I paint just, well, basically like what you guys are seeing here. Obviously, it's more of a tutorial thing because I'm explaining everything I do along the way. But I've even just 20-minute videos that I tried to put up to YouTube that were just previews of the painting videos. I'd have to try 4, 5, 6 uploads before they weren't corrupted or something and just didn't bounce during the upload. And that really made me hesitant to try and use those kind of things where you've got to edit things and process things and then pray that it uploads with no corruption. I don't know how many times I've seen a YouTube video where the sound drops, or usually it's the sound that drops, or the video itself usually is okay, but sound issues can really go nuts. And I know here I have my mic, everything's under control, and now I know actually Facebook Live is supposed to go to a talk show format where you can have at least 3 people on Facebook Live actually talking and having their screens up. I think ultimately it's supposed to be more than that, 8, 9, 10 people, more like a hangout, but something where you can actually sort of control it all, whereas it kind of a Google Hangout, I've tried doing those. They always seem to have tons of background noise and lots of crazy things going on.
People flashing their orange ass.
Well, and I think, too, if somebody, unless there's some grandmaster controlling it all, if somebody just coughs or hits their microphone with their brush, it kills, one screen where maybe the person is painting and they're trying to actually look at that, and that'll kill that. I'm trying to make the OBS work with the Facebook Lives so that I can have, like last Wednesday, I was doing this thing, painting a bust, and I had a reference picture, 2 reference pictures of Genghis Khan. And I had to constantly stop, grab my printed piece of paper, and hold it next to the thing I was painting. And it would be nice to just have the graphic of that actual picture, which that's what it was originally, was a picture I found in a Google search. It'd be really nice to have that graphic up there, the name of the miniature company, so every 5 minutes I didn't have to stop and say, it's such and such studios, whatever, or it's the MIG ammo, if I'm using this product, it's up there. So I don't have to be constantly showing people what it is that I'm using. That would be really handy. And the blog address, because I'll refer to it, and they'll say, well, what's the address of that so I can find that article? And again, it's stopping what I'm doing to do that, and I thought it would be nice to have that, except you're guaranteed at least a 1.5 second lag time. That's just how it is. And I'd have to have another screen somehow to actually see the questions and comments. And that's kind of the thing that's keeping me from investing time in the OBS. I tried it once. Actually, I had a 20-second delay because I was using a Surface Pro. But now there's a little more powerful machine at hand.
So I haven't used OBS a whole lot, but does it not have a direct connection into Facebook Live? Or
it's currently Go ahead.
You have to go grab your stream key and bring it into Facebook Live, and there's going to be this lag time because they are not. You're sort of imposing one thing on top of your Facebook Live. It's not kind of a seamless thing. I think it's a little bit more seamless than it used to be when I first tried it months ago. But still, there's definitely a lag time because every time I see videos about how to use OBS, the person has that kind of 1 second delay or half-second delay or whatever, that lag time.
Right, and a lot of that's usually it's by design. It's supposed to be, how everything's processing and stuff like that, because that happens, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. I've even had it when I've just done regular Facebook Live. There's still a delay of a little bit, even when it's just my cameras right here. That's usually, and I forget what the stream delay is, other than basically making sure that you are sending enough data that there isn't a buffer between them waiting for you to send to finish transmitting.
And the OBS is another means. I mean, podcasts are typically audio only, though a lot of people are saying that the new age podcasts have video too. I personally don't believe that. I think those are vodcasts myself. That's what I call them, but effectively the same thing. Now, an OBS is another tool out there that's free for people to use. There's other ones out there, but a lot of people say that OBS is the best, even though there is a paid option that a lot of people use. It has more plug-in support.
I use the paid one. I use XSplit.
See, I've heard people talk about that OBS is even better than XSplit.
And I had used XSplit before. My nephew does a lot of Twitch streaming, and he uses OBS. I sat down to try and use OBS. I started using it, and I was like, I don't like this. So, like, even with XSplit and how I have it set up, all I have to do is hit a button for going live, and I can go either live on Facebook for my regular profile, or Skirmish Supremacy's profile, or any of the other pages that I host. I set them up once, and I just have to hit the button, and it goes. So that was why I was asking about the challenges with setting it up with OBS. Because I don't have a lot of experience with OBS and Facebook Live.
What I have to do is you have to kind of set up your graphics in advance, because you can do the lower third. You can have multiple cameras, obviously, and different windows. You can have scrolling text. Those are the kind of things that I'd like to have, because there's certain parts of the screen that they're dead enough that I could kind of put graphics in those sections, and even if they just...
Now, one thing you have to watch out for, though, is if you're going to do multiple cameras, especially if you're using web cameras, it's better to buy 2 different brands of web cameras than it is to use like 2 Logitechs, because then the problem is on some systems you'll end up getting driver conflicts and it'll crash one of the cameras. Like, I run a Microsoft and a Logitech, and I found that combo and also you don't have to buy 2 high quality cameras. Like, I run a high quality 920C for my main painting table, because that's like the big picture. But the second one I run is a little Microsoft Life Touch with a 920, or with it's only 720p, and I run that because it's an itty bitty thing that's going to be showing my face. Who gives a shit? It's a thumbnail in the corner. That's another thing to keep in mind for money-wise if you're setting up. Because surprisingly enough, a lot of people want to see your face. And then the growing one is they want to see your palette. They want a camera over your palette.
Well, that's mine. Well, obviously, people can't see this right now, but it's an all-encompassing view. It's the same, actually, tripod. Although it's a webcam now, it's the same setup that I used in all the painting pyramid videos. And even to this day, I get people asking, how the heck did you ever get all that stuff on screen at once? And this is it's a really weird kind of a tripod. I actually found that you can still get them on Amazon even to this day, years later. But it's in no way, shape is it a tripod form. It's this bizarro form. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 LED lights pointing from every single possible direction right now with this miniature. And it takes a little bit of physical Olympics. My nose is pressed up against the magnifier light. When I was filming those videos, I had my nose pressed into the back of the camera. That's why there was no noise canceling back in those days. I didn't have to worry about it because my mouth was literally pressed up against the microphone or whatever that was picking up the sound. Right now, I just have the one webcam. The only reason I would go into a second one is if I am doing terrain or the battle reports. You would have the generic over the head that covers the whole table, and then you would have something that gets down into the actual scene. I think the one I was talking about, Privateer Press, technically they had 3 cameras, but there they clearly had some other guy off screen who was kind of being the grand wizard controlling all those cameras. Because when the 2 guys wanted to address the audience maybe about a rules thing or whatever, all of a sudden the overhead camera was minimized, and then it was just focused in on the guy who was talking.
Yes, and you can get extremely elaborate setups like that. And actually, I've been working on some of that for doing some of the battle reports, and because I was planning on doing some different things of that nature, and some of that can just be done through just hotkey combinations. You could possibly hit, like say Control and F for face cam. Like you want to actually speak to the camera and you want it your full face. You just can quickly hit a keyboard, or you could get a remote and have those tied into it so that you hit a button on the remote that's just sitting off to the side, and it flips to, face cam or painting cam, or if you wanted it to, go to a screen where, like you mentioned, the Genghis Khan picture earlier, or, have it where it displays, you have something hidden and you want it to show, like, here's what paints I'm using, or here's what the miniature is, and you can have all those tied into hotkeys or something like that, so that it's just a quick button press to bring it up. It could be a wireless keyboard, it could be that you have your laptop near you, or a computer, or you just have an extender on a keyboard, anything like that.
Bluetooth remote.
Anything that, it makes the magic happen with just a few button clicks.
It's a kind of magic.
Because I think I have seen people with the OBS thing. They will have multiple cameras, and they maybe set up some kind of a toggle switch like you're talking about. Because they're definitely, I've seen just one guy, and he has multiple cameras going, and he's able to, because I think in OBS you set up a scene, you import all your devices, you have your graphics separate. I just don't know if you can. I guess you can probably, maybe not in the original version, but now that it's been around for a while, they have, like you said, it would be really great. Boy, I sure hope they have something like that. Some kind of hotkey thing would be fantastic.
Right. Everybody, I hate to be the killjoy, but I know Dan, I believe, said he had an early day tomorrow. I definitely have an early day tomorrow. And like I mentioned before, I have server bandwidth, and we had a 4-hour podcast at the beginning of the month, and we're hitting 2 hours. So we have to wrap this up. You guys can stick around and talk after, but we actually have to wrap the closing statements. Dan, podcasting, closing statements.
Well, in what do I think about podcasting? I just love hearing people talk about their passions, be it modeling, painting, creating games, anything. So I love listening to podcasts first and foremost. I love supporting people doing what they do in podcast form or anything else. So yeah. If you want to do one, do one. Plant your flag, just do it. Don't care about anything else. Just get people interested in stuff that you're interested in.
Now, if you had one piece of, if you had advice to give episode 1 now that you're 50 episodes in, what would it be?
It would just literally be just do it. Do it. Just come up with things that you find interesting to hear about and talk about, and just do it. Don't worry about what anyone else is going to say. Any people that are going to get offended. Don't worry if you're good enough or bad enough. I mean, you've listened to any of my podcasts. I don't think it's particularly high standard. Just do it. Just do it because you love it, and who cares what anyone else says.
All right, so Nick, if you had, or what closing statements on podcasting, and what your thoughts on it?
So, no, a lot like Dan was saying, know what you want, know what you're going after with it, and just pursue it. That's the funny thing. I chase a lot of indies down, and hold them down and go, you can do this, and they're like, but I'm scared of talking to people. And things like that. It's stuff like that. Just pursue it and love it.
Now, now that you're 90 episodes in, if you had one piece of advice to give episode 1 what would it be?
Just one piece of advice.
It could be a couple.
Persistence. Persistence, and be happy with baby steps.
Yeah, that's actually some fucking phenomenal advice right there. Be happy with baby steps. Yeah, I can definitely tell you that is true. Now, Jim, you don't do a podcast. Well, you do a podcast, but you don't do... In your spare time, you don't do a podcast. What advice do you have to give from a person who's been on several podcasts now?
I know, just it's a daunting prospect for people to go on these because it's not, you say stage fright was really in there. They believe they're not going to be able to formulate their thoughts into the sound bites because people, they hear sound bites on TV. It's a sound bite society, and they think they're just not going to be coherent, or they think they're going to be boring, or that nobody wants to hear what they're going to say. And I've seen people literally that will not do, they refuse to do these things because they convince themselves. It's just like the painting thing. I can't do oils. I can't do this. Yeah, just make sure you talk about the things you care about, and you will be coherent. You will have things that people are going to want to hear, as long as it's something that you're really jazzed about. That's going to come through on a podcast, and I think that's what people are going to want to hear. They're going to want to hear your enthusiasm for whatever it is.
Exactly, and that is perfect right there. You cannot do a podcast where you're sitting here talking like this the entire time about this camera's great, this microphone's... You can't do that. You can't do that. I think you have to let your passion show. Don't do a podcast that you're not passionate about. I think that is what the one, in closing, I think that is the one thing. If you're passionate about 40K, if you're passionate about Eldar or Space Marines, that's what you want to do a podcast about. And if you're not passionate about something, you better be damn good at faking it, because that's what needs to come through in your podcast. You need to be passionate about it. You need to come through and be like, I love these paints. I love this stuff. This is the type of stuff that I love doing, and this is what I love talking about. Because if you're not passionate about it, if you're bored with it, your listeners are going to get bored. And when they get bored, they just kind of move on, because they don't got time for that. Ain't got no time for that. And that's my closing remarks. Pick something that you're passionate about. I don't give a damn if you're passionate about pop vinyls. If you're passionate about pops and you want to do a podcast, that's what you want to do a podcast on. If you're an avid reader, then do a podcast about reading, about listening to audiobooks, about books that you've read, everything else that's out there. If you love watching movies, do a podcast about watching movies, because that's what people listen to you. Whenever you get excited about something, whenever you can share your excitement with stuff, and you either need to be passionate about it or really be able to fake it. And that's another piece of advice I would give, is train yourself to not be monotone. A lot of people, what happens, don't act like the microphone is not there. I think that's part of the reason Models Workshop is successful, is because we are not a show. We're a group of friends that are hanging out, and we're recording what we're talking about, and we're putting it out for other people to listen to. And that's the entire premise of the show. That's the entire premise, is us bullshitting about painting and talking and just having fun with our friends. And it shows, because you get people messaging you like, dude, that episode was awesome. That was so fucking cool. I never knew of that. I never, man, Jim is such a great guy. He comes on. That guest Dan you had, he's just like totally awesome. He has the most awesome accent, and that was just really cool. You need to have him back on. Or that Nick guy, yeah, I've dealt with him on this other thing, and he's a great guy. It was great for you to have him on there. And that's the exciting part. And people message you like, you said you have this host Rie, and where is she?
I'm here. I kept having some difficulties. I don't know if you noticed me jumping in and out. Yeah.
I noticed. But anyways, and if I was going to give a piece of advice to episode 1 me, now that I'm 80 episodes in, I would say, learning what I learned, stay positive. Because if you're positive and you're hyped about what you do and you love what you do, then you're going to draw other people who are positive and hyped about what you do too. If you are negative about what you do, you're going to surround yourself with a bunch of shitlords, and it's just not going to be fun. It's going to drag you down into this quagmire of just this not feeling good about yourself. Stay positive. And if you can't stay positive, listen to Gabriel Iglesias before you come on, and he'll make you laugh, and then you'll be positive. Like, when I started this conversation, I didn't want to talk. I was like, hey, Jim, hey, Dan, whatever, someone else talk, because I'm not into it. I've had a bad week. And then by the end of the episode, I'm just like, fuck yeah! I wish I could stay on till 3 o'clock in the morning and chat with you guys, because I love this, and it kills me that I had to cut it off, but it's like, oh, we're already at 2 hours. Yeah, it's time to really cut it off, because as we proved the last episode, we could do this for 4 hours, no problem at all. And that's the thing. It's just, and also figure out what you want to do and stick to it. Dan wants to do one-on-one, so that's what he does, and he's successful. Nick wants to do indie stuff, and that's what he does. And he has footwork. He has to go chase these indies down and talk them into coming on the show, but he's successful. We like to talk shit and make really bad jokes. I'm not sure if we're successful, but people laugh, and that's exciting. So, in a nutshell, do what you love. Have fun with it, and if you're not having fun, then find something you're going to have fun with, because that's what all of this is about. There's only a few podcasters out there that make a living doing this. This is about love, and this is about loving what you do. So thank you, everyone, for coming on the show. Dan, Nick, it was great having you. We definitely had to have you back. Jim, amazing having you on. Rie, the 5 words that you said are going to be incredibly hard to process.
I said 6.
Oh, and see, now you're up to like 9. Fuck, you're like tripling your time. But anyways, thank you everyone for joining us on After Hours. You can catch all our links in the outro. Honestly, thank all of you that in listener land too, because without you great people, we wouldn't be doing this. Actually, we probably would. We just wouldn't be recording it. But you're the reason we do this. You're the reason we come back every 2 weeks and record this, and we greatly appreciate. Hey, and a big advice to the listeners of podcasts out there. Send a message to the people you listen to. I know 2 podcasts who have quit because they never had anybody ever message them and say, hey guys, you're doing a great job. You're not bothering them, and even if they don't reply, that message that you send them, that message that you tell them, hey, you're doing a great job, keep it up. Thank you. I laughed at what you said. Hey, I bought a game because you talked about it. Hey, that guest you had on, that was cool. I never thought that he was like that because I've never heard him talk before. Send these people messages. Even if they don't have time to reply, they appreciate it more than you think. More podcasts die out there because people don't think that they're appreciated, that people care about what they have to say. Drop a message, even if it's like, hey dude, love the show. That means more to us than anything out there. But anyways, this is Models Workshop After Hours signing off. Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode of Models Workshop After Hours, your one-stop podcast for laughs and great painting advice. We come out at least every other week, barring emergencies and holidays, of course, covering a wide variety of hobby topics and basically talking about life in general. When you're not listening to us through your favorite podcatcher, you can find the entire crew hanging out at facebook.com/The Models Workshop. That's all one word smushed together, sharing all the cool things that we find floating around the internet and giving out painting advice. You can also find Larry on Twitter and Instagram at MWAH Podcast, and Yeji and Clint at the same at Snickernack, which is NICKERNACK. If you like what we do, please make sure to drop a quick review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or whatever service you listen to us on. This helps us out greatly and gets the word of the After Hours out to everyone. Models Workshop is done out of pocket. We have no advertisers because we like to be able to be completely truthful with you. If you want to make a donation to help us out, you can at paypal.me/Models Workshop, or you can do a monthly service at patreon.com/Models Workshop. Once again, thank you for listening. Until next time, grab those brushes, paints, and get to painting.